I am now. Okay. So, somebody just left my room. Okay, so you didn't have to do part D. Okay, so you didn't have to do part D. You're just gonna have to stop me if you don't understand something I do too. Okay. The people that did it, I thought they were pretty good scores because truly it was out of 15 points that you could get. So if you got something like 8 or more, that was pretty good, right? And some people got like even 13, I think was a high score. That was pretty incredible. But one thing you got to do is you got to be careful. Two things, actually. One is really be careful what you write. And the second thing is don't simplify. I saw several people lose points for not simplifying, or for simplifying. They simplified incorrectly, and that was an issue. And then the final thing is I saw a couple people just put an answer down. So like if you do an integral on your calculator, or if you do some kind of computation, even a simple division, just write the division down, but don't simplify it. It's super important. So, so you guys can see the screen, right? All right. It's small? You're on that little Chromebook thing. All right. So here, I'll try to zoom in. Hold on. Window, view, zoom in. There, that's the best I can do. All right. So a couple things is when you think about like what's given to you. So if I'm doing this problem, you know that you're given this rate. That's what you're given. So you might have to go up the steps to differentiate. So this is R of t. So this would be R prime of t. And this would be an amount. Okay. And if R of t is in gallons per hour, then you know this would be in gallons, and this would be in gallons per hour per hour. So you already know when it says indicate units of measure, you already know what you should have just by knowing this steps, where you're what step you're on and where you're going. So it says use the data in the table to approximate R prime of 1/2. So 1/2 is right in between these two. Okay, so when it shows up right in between those two, for part A, what I would want you to write is I would want you to write R prime of 1/2 is approximately equal to, and then you're going to do the calculations. And remember, you do the difference in the y's divided by the difference in the x's. And I saw some people do the difference in the x's divided by the difference in the y's. But really what you want to do is you want to do 5 minus 8 divided by 2/3 minus 1/3. And that would be in gallons per hour per hour. Don't simplify that. If you try to simplify that, you only open yourself up to not doing it right. Yeah, you should leave it like that. You're fine if you write -9, but you have to have this calculation. If you just write -9, that's not enough without this. You have to have what they're looking for is they're looking for a difference quotient. And that's it. So that's what show the computations that lead to your answer. That's this. And that's also the answer. So you don't have to complete it. Yeah. Hold on, Marcus. Equals would be fine too. Like they're not going to split hairs if you wrote this. Okay. That's not a big deal. Okay. Yeah, Marcus. No, that not unless you simplify it. So Margaret's question is a really good one. Could you write R of 2/3 minus R of 1/3 divided by 2/3 minus 1/3? If you just left it like that, that would get you the setup. Well, I don't remember how many points this is worth, but if this is worth 3 points, that would get you the setup point, but not the answer point. So I would just jump right into it. So I would just jump right into this. I saw some people flip these two also, and that's really unfortunate. That's just an unfortunate thing that happens to some people. Yeah, you could on this, the question is, can you put gallons per hour squared? And the answer is yes. Okay. All right. So then we get to part B, and it says, use the left Riemann sum with 3 subintervals to write this one out, right? So part B, I would encourage you, in this case, you wouldn't have to write this part, but I might write that just to start out with. But then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to write I'm going to use the right, which Riemann sum? The left Riemann sum. So each of these is 1/3. So I would do 1/3 times 11 plus 1/3 times 8 plus 1/3 times 5. And I wouldn't do anything with that. Leave it. You don't have to do arithmetic. So, because the problem is if you go through and do this, and this is in gallons, if you go through and compute that and you compute it incorrectly, you might get the point for the Riemann sum, but you won't get the point for the answer. This particular, what I wrote there, would get you the Riemann sum work and the answer point and the units point. So you would get it all right there. So don't simplify arithmetic. Well, that's a Riemann sum, and that's just arithmetic, and they don't want to have to grade you on arithmetic. But if you do arithmetic and you do it incorrectly, they will grade you on it, right? So you can't do something incorrectly and expect to get credit for it. So then this last one kind of trips some people up. But what you have to think about in part C is if you integrate from 0 to 1/3 of r prime of t dt, if you integrate that derivative, you should just get r of t evaluated from 0 to 1/3, right? I mean, that's what you should get. So you should get r of 1/3 minus r of 0. And then you just have to read the table, right? I mean, you just have to do 8 minus 11. Now, I saw several people switch those and do 11 minus 8. And they did great stuff, and then they wrote 11 minus 8. And that was too bad. Right, and you could jump right to this, but you can't stop there. You can't just stop at the r of 1/3 minus r of 0. You can have that down there, but technically this is what you want to put down. Okay, I would probably put all 3 lines down here, but in the end, this is what we're grading. Okay, and then part D, we're going to maybe cover that later, but we won't do that right now. Any questions on that before I go on? Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, you don't have to do that. No. You could. So Adam's question is for part B. If I were doing another way, I could have done this. You wouldn't have to, but you could do 1/3 minus 0 times 11 plus 2/3 minus 1/3 times 8 plus 1 minus 2/3 times 5. You could do that, but no, you don't have to show that. Nope. Okay, but you could if you wanted to. All right, so let's go on. Hold on, let me get to the next one. I think I have to, okay. So then we'll get to this problem. Come on. All right. So this first part is, stop. This first part is really similar. Well, in this first part, really, for part A on this, you're given this graph and you're supposed to come up with the integral from 0 to 7 of f prime of x dx. And you know that this is the graph of f prime. So you should have written 2 minus 7 plus 3 plus 1 and leave it. If you simplify it, you better do it correctly. But if you just write -1, you might not get credit for it. If you just write this -1 and that's all you have, and you don't have any of the other work, you might not get it right. Now, if you simplify it incorrectly and write -2, whoop, sorry, I am not joking, Nick. No, you took a point away from that. Nicky asked if I took a point away because he wrote this. He wrote 2 minus 7 plus 3 plus 1 equals -2. That is a mistake. That is not a true statement. You cannot get full credit for untrue statements. So this is not true. You should just leave it like this and leave it like this and just leave it like that and just go on with your life. Okay. Any questions on that? It looks just fantastic. All right, now let's look at part B. Part B confused people, but for some people, I can tell you that some people were confused on this, but it says, given that f of 4 equals 10, write an expression for f that involves an integral. What that was is f of x is equal to 10 plus the integral from 4 to x of f prime of t dt. That is the equation that you're going to use. We have used that equation several times. That equation, that is not new. We used it on delta math. We used it on several assignments with delta math, because then it says use the expression to find the absolute minimum. So now you're talking about an absolute minimum. So now you're talking about going, okay, we got this function, we got f of x here, which is 10 plus the integral from 4 to x of f prime of t dt. And you know that you're starting at 0 and you're going to 7. Now in here, you need critical numbers. That's when f prime equals 0. If you go back up here, that happens at 1 and 4, and you could even put 6 down there, and you wouldn't have been penalized. Now, if you put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you would be penalized. Okay, if you just pick every integer randomly and not even without consideration for anything, that would be your own issue with that. Oh yeah, I meant to write x here. Okay. What I wrote right there is 2 points, right? Because you have identified the equation and you have identified the critical point. So that's 2 points that you've identified that. Now, it might be really good for you to write this right here. Okay, because that just as a, but you wouldn't have to have that. You just have what I wrote here. That's 2 points. Now, what you have is you go, okay, well, at 4, you know, it's 10. They gave that to you. So then if you go back this way, remember that from 1 to 4, f prime is negative. So f needs to be decreasing from 1 to 4. So that makes this 17, right? Because it needs to be, you need to be decreasing from 1 to 4. So you need to start at 17 and end up at 10. And then up here, this would be 15. And you don't necessarily need to show the computations, but you could. I mean, you could have written 10 plus 7 up here. And on this one, you could do 10 plus 7 minus 2. I mean, those would be good computations to show. And then this one would be 10 plus 3, which is 13, and 10 plus 3 plus 1, which is 14. Now, that, what I wrote there is another point. But, here's the big but. If you stop right there, you don't get full credit. And I might have given you credit if you circled it, but generally speaking, you shouldn't even get credit for that. What you need to do is you need to go on further and you need to extract this information. Giving you full credit for this would be like me giving you your English teacher giving you full credit for turning in a note card for a paper. That's just not a thing, right? So what you need to do is you need to say the absolute minimum is 10 at x equals 4, and the absolute maximum is 17 at x equal 1. Now you could have gotten, that would be, you know, that's not, we did problems just like that on Delta Math. I know we did. We did problems just like that. Now, I was very generous on part C. Okay, I was very generous on part C because part C says integrate g of x. And if you got confused of where g of x is, you should have looked at the top because it was this. And I should have not given a lot of you points. So look back, because I probably should take a point away. I will on the exam if you do this, because the answer is 5x minus x cubed over 3. If you wrote that, that is not worth a point. If you write this, now it's worth a point. Now, I gave it to you if you didn't have plus C, but AP would not give it to you if you don't put plus C. You have to have it. So you have to put the plus C. I gave it to you if you just had this because I thought that was a little bit of splitting hairs and we'd need to talk about it, but I won't give it to you on the exam if there's a question like that. Okay. Now we get to part D, and I got some complaints on this. Admittedly, some people are like, "Hey, part D is too hard, Alquist." And I would say, yeah, not really, but let me show you how you would do it. So you know that if you look at this, this is f prime of g is 5 minus x squared. So that's the question they're asking you for. You should realize, oh, hey, I don't have anything for that. I know the integral of f prime of u is equal to fu. But this is kind of a side note. So if you make u equal to 5 minus x squared, just writing that was worth 1 point. Just that. Now, if you then say, okay, well then du is negative 2x dx, so negative 1/2 du is equal to x dx. You're not quite there at the second point on this, but you can see that if I highlight the things that I have here, u is going to go in for that. And negative 1/2 du is going to go in there. But we are going to have to change the bounds, right? We're going to have to change the bounds on that. So we can do that. We can look at this and we can say, okay, we have the integral of f prime of u times negative 1/2 du. Now our bounds on this are going to, if we go from 5 minus 1 is 4, and I'm using the bounds that we have on here, and then 5 minus 2 squared is 1, right? What I wrote there is another point. The final point is the answer. And the final point, what you'd have is you have negative 1/2, that's a constant. This is f of u, evaluated from 4 to 1. So now what you have on here is negative 1/2 f of 1 minus negative 1/2 f of 4. And you might go, yeah, but what do I do now? Well, you did that work. You actually did that work up here. Look where that one is. Here's all the information you need for part D, right? Because f of 1 is equal to 17, f of 10 is equal, f of 4 is equal to 10. So what we'd have down here is we would have negative 1/2 times, what is this? This is 10? 17 plus 1/2 times 10. What do you think you should do with that? Why? You should leave it. If you start messing with that, only bad things can happen. You cannot be more correct than what I wrote. You can mess it up from there. You can write that that's equal to negative 2 or something, but you don't. But so leave it alone. So I think that was a pretty tough problem. But if you think about where the points come from, this was worth 1 point. That's pretty hard right there. This was worth 1 point. That might even be a little bit difficult. But this right here was worth 1 point. That's easy. Okay, right? I mean, I think that's easy. This right here was worth 1 point. I think that was pretty easy too. It won't be the exact same. Maybe. This is 1 point here. These critical numbers right here are 1 point. The table here is 1 point. And then the answer here is 1 point. So that was a pretty big one. And then if you go up here, part A, this was, I think, 1 point. So there's some things on there that you should be able to generate over half the point. Now maybe you didn't on this one, or maybe you didn't even do it yet, right? But if you didn't generate half the points on these two FRQs, that's okay, as long as you understand where you can generate those points. Mm-hmm. So Adam's question is a good one. This is actually, if you think about it, this part is the answer point. okay? This part right here is the justification. The table that you write is the justification. That shows that you came up with these answers by doing an analysis, not by just guessing or throwing some numbers down. That shows your work, right? And so that shows your work. So the answer point is 1 point. The justification is that table. That's why I say just make a table when they say absolute maximum, minimum. Just start making a table. Find the critical numbers. Usually that's a point, finding the critical numbers. And then the justification is 1 point, and then the answer is 1 point. And in this case, they wanted you to write that integral expression first, so that was an extra point on there. Anybody online have any question? There was a question in the chat maybe, but no assignments are going to be closed over spring break. Okay, so I won't be grading anything over spring break. Okay, so anything I don't have by Friday morning, I won't be grading it. And I did update everything. So I do want to tell you guys that I updated everything by the end of 5th hour. Everything that I thought I had, I updated. But it's really important that you guys check your own power schools to see if what I have down is what you have in there. And if you do something, especially the FRQs or Desmos, if you do Desmos or the FRQs, it's easy for me to check. It's easier for me to check Delta Math, but you should check and see if I did it correctly. But if you do something on the FRQs or Desmos, you should email me letting me know to go back and check those, because I don't get notifications or anything on those. I admittedly did not check and see if anybody turned in any of the circuits, because I didn't. I'll have to look back at those on Schoology. I forgot to look at Schoology on that. Okay. The test is open right now. You could do it tonight. You could do it tomorrow and Thursday. You have an hour to do it. You shouldn't need an hour for each part. There's 18 multiple choice questions on a normal AP exam. When you do 18 multiple choice questions, you get 36 minutes. Normally you get 2 minutes per. I gave you 60 minutes. And then on the free response questions, there's 19 points, and I gave you an hour for that too. So just about time and a half. So, I mean, it'll be about the same length. I think this FRQ length was 18 points. Now I cut 3 out that that you could do on my exam, but it's about the same length.
You said,
did somebody have a question?
You're not grading anything over spring break, or not going to grade anything after?
I'm not going to look at, I am going to do my best not to look at any student work during spring break.
Of course.
I will grade everything after spring break. I'll look at everything.
Okay.
But don't expect your grade to be updated during spring break. But as soon as Monday comes after spring break, I'll be back in the grind of grading stuff. So I just want to check out for a week. Because
you need
is it going to be one FRQ?
You need a break too. Of course.
It's so Jonah's question is it going to be one FRQ? No, it's not one FRQ. It's parts of several different FRQs. So AP Classroom doesn't really do a good job of just assigning one FRQ. So I picked parts of different FRQs. So there will be several parts that you'll have to do, similar to like this problem here, where you had to do several different parts, some of which are connected, some of which are not connected.
I forgot how AP classing works. Once I start one of the parts of the exam, if I toggle away the timer, does it stop or not?
No, the timer keeps going. Once you start, the timer goes. You got 60 minutes. So sit down where you can get the whole thing done in 60 minutes. Now, arguably, you might not spend, if you know the material, you might not spend more than 40 minutes on it. But you got 60, right? So that's the key. Okay. Okay. Does anybody need anything else? You could, because I'm done unless you need some more stuff. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and stop the recording.